No more nonsense. We've honestly waited long enough. This is Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is the third mainline entry of the ongoing Square Enix and Disney crossover series. The hype for this game has been astronomical, especially since people like myself have been waiting to play this for nearly 13 years. But what is going on in Kingdom Hearts 3? The story picks up right after the events of some of the previous spin-off games that take place after Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically right after Kingdom Hearts 0.2, A Fragmentary Passage. I know that might sound confusing for some people, but let me stress, if you've never played any of the previous games or the side games, you will be lost here. Anyway, Sora, Donald, and Goofy are back together again and need to help Sora regain his strength after the previous events of the last game, taking him to go visit Hercules and see other worlds to regain what he lost and prepare for the imminent battle against the evil Xehanort and Organization 13. Parallel to this, Riku and King Mickey make their way to the Realm of Darkness on a quest to find the lost Keyblade Master Aqua and bring together the 7 Guardians of Light for the incoming battle. All of this is happening as Xehanort continues his grand plan to forge the fabled Keyblade and make Kingdom Hearts appear, affecting all the worlds forever. There's so much that happens here, as many threads and plot points from the entire series finally converge and wrap up over the 30 hours you experience in the story. There's a whole lot more here that gets absolutely insane if you aren't caught up with the overall story. But the big question for fans here, however, does Kingdom Hearts 3 live up to the hype? Now, immediately, we have to acknowledge that Kingdom Hearts 3 looks freaking phenomenal. I really love the visual style of this entire game. I think it was a great choice to go with the Pixar worlds this time around. They just match up with everything about the Kingdom Hearts series. They just look like they belong together. Now, that being said, I do wish that we have gotten to see some more 2D animation style Disney movies make an appearance in Kingdom Hearts 3. I feel like there's some Disney movies that weren't 3D animation or weren't part of Pixar that could have gotten some love here. I mean, what happened to the Jungle Book or any of the other Disney movies that have come out within the last 10 to 15 years that aren't 3D animation? However, I am still very happy with the worlds that we got here. I think that the best looking worlds are the Toy Box from Toy Story, Monsters Inc. The Factory, Big Hero 6's San Francisco. It just looks freaking awesome. Even Arendelle and Corona from both Frozen and Tangled look freaking good in this engine. All this stuff is done using the Unreal 3 engine, which is a first for the Kingdom Hearts series. Beforehand, there was a little bit more proprietary stuff that was used at Square Enix that made those games look good for the eras that they were released in. However, what we got for Kingdom Hearts 3 just looks freaking fantastic. And of course, we do have to talk about the music of Kingdom Hearts 3, which again, also sounds phenomenal. Yoko Shimomura really brings her A game here. All the original tracks that we have gotten from throughout the series that are remixed, and including some new original tracks just for Kingdom Hearts 3, sound freaking great. But even the ones that are based on the Disney Pixar worlds, like some of the themes from Toy Story and even Big Hero 6, feel like they match up with all the events and all the stuff that's going down in this game. Now that we got all that out the way, we do have to talk about the story of Kingdom Hearts 3 because there is a lot to unpack here. I understand a lot of people still haven't played this game in full, so I'm going to put a big spoiler alert right here in front of you guys. You see that right there? That's what you call a spoiler alert. I don't want to hear nothing more of anybody else complaining that there's spoilers in this video. We are diving headfirst into this, so get ready, people. It's about to go down. All of the worlds you visit in Kingdom Hearts 3 are great in some way, including the Toy Box from Toy Story, the Factory from Monsters Incorporated, and San Francisco from Big Hero 6. They all look phenomenal and have wide open areas to traverse and explore. But some things drop in quality with worlds like Frozen's Arendelle and Corona from Tangled. The biggest problems I have are how the worlds are not only rehashed stories from their movies, but they don't really add anything interesting to them. In both Toy Story and Big Hero 6, the game acknowledges the events from those movies and gives us a pseudo-sequel that Sora, Donald, and Goofy can be part of. This includes Monsters Incorporated as well. I know previous Kingdom Hearts games have rehashed the Disney movie stories before, and I loved them for that back then, but once I saw how Toy Box changed things up, I was really hoping that every other world would follow suit afterwards. As much as everybody enjoys hearing Let It Go, being shown it again in full and playing through an abridged version of the Frozen story just wasn't cutting it. Other worlds have other things going for them that change things up, which we'll get into later on, but they aren't victims of this haphazardness and don't feel bland whatsoever. Overall, the Pixar worlds are great choices to include in Kingdom Hearts, but some better decisions could have been made for how you spend your time in a few of them.
For me personally, I really believe that Toy Story's Toy Box is probably the best world out of the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 3, with both Monsters Incorporated, the factory, and also Big Hero 6's San Francisco really being a close second and third. My biggest thing about those worlds is that they just continue the story of those respective movies, and I love that. I not only get to interact with these characters again, but I also get to acknowledge, or at least the game acknowledges, that those events in those movies happened, and this is all taking place afterwards. That's my biggest issue with both Frozen and Tangled's worlds, and some of the other worlds that you go to, is that they just don't have that same type of vibe. They just rehash most of the stuff that happened in those respective movies. The other thing about those worlds that I mentioned, both for Toy Story, Big Hero 6, and Monsters Incorporated, they have so much stuff kind of like put into them. They're such big worlds, and they have so many details that are kind of related to some of the events and all the other stuff that you deal with and you interact with. But all the other stuff with Frozen, Tangled, and some of the original worlds, they feel a little bit much more slimmed down or a lot more bland in comparison. For Frozen in particular, everything obviously is kind of like covered with snow, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens related to that Frozen storyline, but it just wasn't as interesting as everything else that was happening in some of those other worlds. The same could be said for Tangled. I feel like the Kingdom of Corona is a little bit bigger and there's more areas you get to explore, and if anything, there's a little bit more mini-game and side quest stuff that you get in that particular world. But again, in comparison to everything going on with Toy Box, everything going on with San Francisco, and everything happening with Monsters Incorporated's factory, it just, again, the comparison is almost 1-0. It's just insane to me, like how much more effort went into those worlds, or at least a lot more attention and care went into those worlds compared to some of the other ones, which arguably might be the more popular of the Disney Pixar movies. Again, that's very subjective, and everybody that plays this game is going to feel a little bit different, but those worlds in particular I felt like were the ones that stood out the most to me. If you notice, there's one particular world that I didn't really talk in comparison with those worlds because I feel like it gets into its own thing, and that's the Pirates of the Caribbean world. The funny thing about Pirates of the Caribbean is that it's a huge world. It's probably the biggest world in Kingdom Hearts 3, right next to San Francisco. Arguably, I would love to see a comparison between the two of the actual size. But with Pirates of the Caribbean, it not only has a whole separate ship mechanic where you could actually sail the different high seas of the Caribbean, but there's so much stuff that happens in there that you don't get to see in the main storyline. When I was playing through the main story in the Caribbean, I got to see a bunch of different spots, and I obviously got introduced to sailing on the ship with the Leviathan and being able to upgrade that and stuff. But then there's all these other areas you just don't get to see unless you actually go and explore them either during the story or after the main story. You're completely gonna miss out on like 75% of that world. To me, that's a misbalance in pacing, and I would have loved to have been able to go explore all those worlds with Jack Sparrow and the rest of the cast while I'm on the main story of the Caribbean, but for whatever reason, they kind of just rush you through all that section and they completely ignore all this stuff going on over here. The other thing about the Caribbean world that you go to is that obviously it looks completely different than the rest of the worlds that you visit in Kingdom Hearts 3. It's a little bit more photorealistic, and it still looks good for what it is. I think all the characters look great, but the voice acting and some of the other story plot points are just a little bit more mediocre at best. Some of the characters that appear in the Caribbean world that are based on the Pirates characters from the movies, they feel like they're just really out of whack with the sound-alikes that they got for those particular parts. It just completely removed me from all the stuff that was going on. And also, again, it just feels like a super abridged version of Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and it just didn't really do much for me compared to all the other worlds I got to visit. The other thing we do have to talk about, which I feel like is a huge part of Kingdom Hearts 3 that a lot of people are really downplaying, is that we don't get to see any Final Fantasy characters in here. We don't get to meet up with any of them whatsoever. In the very beginning of the game, when you go visit Hercules in Mount Olympus, you get to see a little small introduction with the narrator that's kind of like easing everybody into the world, very similar to the Hercules movie, where they mention both Auron and Cloud from those respective games in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. But other than a few extra little cameos and fan nods related to the Final Fantasy series, we get to see no other Final Fantasy characters interact with any of the main cast. I think this is a huge misstep, especially since a lot of the Final Fantasy characters we see in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 played such a big part into the story, it's confusing why Nomura just completely removed them. We get to see Merlin the Wizard, who makes an appearance in most of the Kingdom Hearts games, and he's really the one that interacts with all the Final Fantasy characters, or at least they report to him in some fashion, but when we see him in Kingdom Hearts 3, we get no mention or no reference to any of those other characters. What happened to Leon? What happened to Yuffie, Cid, Aerith? What happened to freaking Cloud? What happened to Sephiroth, who was a big final boss or optional boss in most of the other games? What happened to any of those characters? Why they don't make any sort of appearance in any of the worlds or any other references are done to them throughout the main story, very confusing, a huge misstep for me, and I was very disappointed because I was hoping at least at some point they make an appearance by the end of the game, and we just don't get that. Maybe we get DLC at some point, but as it is right now, huge disappointment. So outside of that story stuff, because we're going to have a little bit more to talk about that later, let's talk about another key component of Kingdom Hearts 3, which again, super important. Let's talk about this gameplay, which again, very different than what we've gotten in previous Kingdom Hearts games.
Kingdom Hearts 3 puts the gameplay of the whole series into overdrive. It's still an action RPG like before, feeling similar to how Kingdom Hearts 2 controlled, but everything feels looser and somewhat floaty in comparison. To me, Sora is incredibly powerful in this game, with abilities that allow him to explore these big worlds with ease. Speaking of which, the worlds are massive in scale. You'll be jumping off cliffs, running up buildings, and traversing wide open areas that make previous Kingdom Hearts games look like small sandboxes. Exploring in Kingdom Hearts 3 might not always feel like you're playing a Kingdom Hearts game, especially in later portions of the story where things get pretty wild. However, I like the big areas because you get to see more of the Disney worlds that you explore. And yet I could totally understand if some people feel a little bit overwhelmed by the size of the places that you visit. Some worlds definitely feel way too big than what they need to be. San Francisco, Caribbean, and Mount Olympus are all good examples of this. You can easily get lost if you aren't mindful of where you are on the minimap, which by the way, should have a larger map that you could pull up to help you out. Why Nomura and the team didn't include this in the menus is anybody's guess. But not all the areas you go to are massive, however. Some worlds are very small compared to what they used to be. Twilight Town now only has 2 main areas that you could visit, which doesn't make any sense if you played any of the previous games. The 100 Acre Wood, which was also a big part of the series now, was made much less important. It looks like some worlds clearly got more attention than others, which could be confusing for some places you'd think would be handled with better care.
Some of the worlds that we visit in this game are absolutely gigantic, huge, and freaking epic in every sense of the word. They completely blow away most of the other worlds that we got in previous Kingdom Hearts games. This is also cool because of the sheer size and scope of them. We get to see a lot more detail about certain worlds that we never really explored before. It gives Disney and Square Enix a little bit more chances to showcase some of the other interesting aspects of those films. Being able to go to most of the Toy Box World area in Toy Story and be able to see all these little fun references and including some interesting nods to both Final Fantasy and other stuff, I think that's pretty cool. But even going to like someplace like San Francisco or even going to the Monsters Inc. factory and seeing all those little things, including the Factory of Doors, that vault, and all that other stuff that we would recognize or at least relate to those movies, that's freaking awesome. But at the flip side of that, while we get all those epic moments for some of those big worlds, some of the worlds that we would expect to get a lot more better treatment get completely shafted in Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, look at what happened with freaking Twilight Town. It's like a peanut compared to what it used to be in Kingdom Hearts 2. What happened to the Sandlot? What happened to the freaking train station? Or the tower that everybody goes to eat sea salt ice cream? How come I can't go to those and climb up that tower and actually see what's up? Or even find a Lucky Mickey emblem over there? What happened to freaking Twilight Town? The other thing I do have to acknowledge, which for whatever reason people aren't really making a big deal about, is that there are worlds shown to us in this game that we get to see in cutscenes that we just don't go visit whatsoever. What happened to the Mysterious Tower, which we see in many of the cutscenes? What happened to Radiant Garden or Hollow Bastion, which we get to see in the cutscenes? What happened to Destiny Islands, which we see multiple times in this game, but we never once actually get to go visit and explore? Why is that the case? These are locations that are super important to the Kingdom Hearts series, and we just completely just don't get them. I just am mad confused about this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys out there are disappointed and confused about this as well. Maybe this is also coming in DLC, maybe this is coming in a final mix version of this game, which I'm pretty hopeful that this will be the case. But as it is right now with Kingdom Hearts 3, very confusing and very disappointing that we just don't get to see those worlds when they're so key to most of the plot of the entire Kingdom Hearts saga. Now that being said, however, there are a couple worlds that I do feel like are disappointing that are in this game, including specifically Frozen, Tangled, and also even I would argue the Keyblade Graveyard, just the way that it's handled in a few certain ways. The other thing I will say about Kingdom Hearts 3 and its gameplay is that it really rewards exploration, however you have to be willing to do it outside of the main story. If you're just following the events of the main plotline and you're kind of going from place to place to see what the next cutscene is, you're going to miss out on so much stuff, much like in the Pirates of the Caribbean world. So the other part about the gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 3 is obviously the combat, which I feel like is not only the best that the series has to offer, but also the one that really dials up everything past 11. There's a lot more crazier stuff that's going down with the combat.
Combat in Kingdom Hearts 3 is a huge step up for the series. Donald and Goofy continue to fight at your side, but every world now has 2 guest allies that can accompany you into battle. This makes a full 5-man party that makes the battles bigger and more chaotic. The controls are simple in combat and are very similar to other KH games, but you have many more abilities at your disposal. Keyblade Transformations are like drive forms from Kingdom Hearts 2, which makes Sora use a variety of different new weapon styles that are devastatingly powerful. You also have Link summons to call upon Disney characters like before, as well as team attacks with your allies. All of this is spectacular to look at and very powerful. But the most overpowered ability is the Attraction Flow. These are summons based on Disneyland rides that look crazy and demolish just about everything on screen while being super easy to activate in combat. The spinning teacups, the pirate ships, and other Attraction Flow attacks protect you for a short time from attacks and can shift the momentum of a fight. Using them during boss fights can sometimes make the battle super easy, even with some of the tougher late game bosses. Did I find any of it annoying when I could do this all the time? Not at all, but I can't ignore how much easier every fight becomes when you're using these crazy abilities very early on. Nothing could stop me from absolutely destroying my enemies, and I never died once while playing the game. It almost takes out all the challenge for most of the game, but is definitely still pretty to look at.
Hands down, this is the most powerful that we've seen Sora than any of the previous Kingdom Hearts games. He's not only super overpowered and almost borderline broken in most encounters that you have with him, but you also have both Donald and Goofy, as well as also two other guest allies that fight alongside you in most encounters, making many parts of the game feel a little bit more like a breeze rather than challenging. By the time you really level up, when you get past like level 40 or 50, you're almost pretty much a beast at that point. But with all the different abilities that you have on top of everything else that you get from your allies, most encounters in this game are going to feel very easy. The one thing that I feel like really is overpowered and completely decimates everything on screen is the Attraction Flow rides that are based on different Disneyland and Disney World rides that you could kind of use every once in a while in combat. You trigger them by attacking specific enemies that have a little cursor on them, and once you hit them, you have pretty much the ability to use that Attraction Flow at any point that you want within a given time frame. The only thing that's disappointing is that you don't get to choose which specific Attraction Flow you get. You're kind of given it at random, and whatever it is, you could trigger it at that particular time, but I would have loved to actually specifically choose which ones I want, or at least equip specific ones that I could use in the combat whenever I want to use them. If maybe there was a different meter, kind of like the drive meter or my magic meter, that built up over time during combat where I could use the Attraction Flow on my command rather than just so randomly at like all these different points, I feel like it would have been balanced out a little bit better. But as it is now, it's just completely way overpowered and just like the end all be all in most encounters that you have. The other thing that also gets added onto this with Sora specifically and exclusively to him are the Keyblade Transformations, which not only allow you to get different forms and different weapons that the Keyblade transforms into, but also opens up other types of abilities, other powers, and allows you to completely decimate your opponents. Keep in mind, all this is going on with the drive forms, the Attraction Flow, your allies, and even the Link summons that you get that are like summons from previous games. All that is happening at the exact same time. So you could do this during a boss fight and completely just wreck everything on screen. In most of the battles and the big boss fights that I got into, I was able to do this multiple times throughout the entirety of the fight, and it really didn't put a lot of level of challenge on me, and it really didn't make things difficult. Granted, I was playing on standard because I wanted to experience the game at least at normal difficulty before I get into anything else. From what I hear from other people who are playing the game on Proud, it's almost very similar in the same thing, where the Attraction Flow and a lot of these other abilities used in conjunction with each other completely wrecks up the combat, even though the combat is still great to control and it's still pretty big and epic in most areas. Maybe this was done on purpose in order to kind of streamline everything and make the game overall very accessible for people who are just going to be diving into Kingdom Hearts 3, but most people will also tell you that this is definitely not as challenging and not as difficult as previous Kingdom Hearts games. But outside of the combat and all the other exploration stuff within the worlds themselves, we have to talk about the Gummi ship stages, which once again, like the rest of the actual series that I've mentioned to you guys on this channel, I feel very indifferent about the Gummi ship.
The Gummi ship levels are vastly different this time around. You can fly around freely with the Gummi ship within the space between worlds you visit. While this is better than the drawn-out Gummi ship guided levels in both KH1 and KH2, I still don't enjoy playing through these sections that much when I have to go to a new world. I've always felt indifferent about the Gummi ship stages. They just don't do much for the rest of the games. Without these sections being here, you don't lose out on anything from the main game, so why even bother having these sections be drawn out in between the worlds? It can take a while flying from place to place with the Gummi ship in Kingdom Hearts 3 early on. Things get a little bit easier after you make the effort to explore the space around you for new Gummi parts, which can yield a massively better ship. You also have random battles with the Heartless ships in the battle stages that you can run into while flying around. These are kind of like random battles from a Final Fantasy game, with the on-rail spots like previous KH Gummi ship sections. Some people might like flying the Gummi ship stages in between the worlds, but once again I find myself not caring for them as much as I probably should.
There are a lot of changes in these Gummi stages and Gummi missions than in previous Kingdom Hearts games, and for the most part, they're probably some of the most easiest to control compared to other entries of the series. But personally for me, I still don't enjoy playing them. I feel like you could completely remove these sections of the game and it'd be a little bit much more better paced overall for Kingdom Hearts 3. I just feel like you don't need the Gummi ship missions whatsoever. That being said, did I still at least enjoy it somewhat when I was playing them and I had to go from world to world and at least experience all the stuff that was right in between them? They were totally fine, and I really still didn't like playing through them or need to play through them in order to get to the other worlds, but for what they are, for people that do enjoy the Gummi ship stages from previous Kingdom Hearts games, this is totally fine. You're going to be able to kind of, maneuver around in a much more bigger open-ended area. You'll have a little bit more missions, and you could get into random battles with the Heartless in their own Gummi ships, which feels a little bit more like a Final Fantasy nod, not really kind of like similar to some of the other Gummi ship missions in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, but still, for anybody else, this might work for you, but for me, I could do without it totally. Outside of the Gummi ship sections, which is kind of like extra content of Kingdom Hearts 3, we do have to talk about some of the other bonus content of Kingdom Hearts 3, which I feel like is some of the stuff that really got on my nerves. There were some things in here that I just did not like whatsoever, and I didn't expect that to come from Kingdom Hearts 3.
The endgame content in Kingdom Hearts 3 will be very divisive among people. There's a lot to do here, but not all of it is really satisfying or fun. The mini-games for the Bistro give you bonus items that you could use to power up Sora even further, but you don't get much out of completing everything related to it. There's also the classic Kingdom mini-games that you could find in Chest, as well as the Winnie the Pooh mini-games that are found in the 100 Acre Wood, but these are also very irrelevant distractions. Once I visited Winnie the Pooh for the first time and got the Keyblade from it, I never went back again afterwards. This is a shame because the 100 Acre Wood was a place that you kept revisiting in previous games, but it just feels super rushed and unimportant here. However, the absolute worst bonus content in Kingdom Hearts 3 has to be the Fantastic 7 minigames. I absolutely hate these and get annoyed at how tied they are to getting the ultimate Keyblade for Sora. Each minigame has a different task that you must complete by finding one of the flans in all the different worlds you visit, but you need to get a high score in order to complete them and get the bonuses that they yield. A combination of wonky mechanics and strict criteria for getting the high scores make these a huge annoying chore to play. I ended up ignoring them after I finished the game because I just did not have fun with them whatsoever. And then finally, there's the Battle Gates, which you can only access after completing the main story. These have tough fights against the Heartless and the Nobodies that will really test your mettle, so you better be prepared when you take them on. The final gate has a bonus optional fight that's supposed to be a quote-unquote secret optional boss, but it's nowhere near as difficult as you'd expect. Now granted, I was level 99 by the time I started this, but I was expecting something more along the lines of the fight against Sephiroth or any of the other bonus fights from the series. What I got here instead was a dud. To add more salt into the wound here, there are no other optional bonus fights in the game. No Sephiroth, no mysterious figure, no heart, not even a bonus Disney fight against Maleficent or anybody else important. This really felt like a huge cop-out and makes me believe that we're getting a final mixed version of Kingdom Hearts 3 that will probably have more to discover.
Those Fantastic 7 missions, my guys, are so freaking annoying. I really hate that Nomura made it mandatory to play through all these missions and get near perfect scores on them in order to get all the ingredients that you need to get stuff like the Ultimate Keyblade. I understand having mini-games in Kingdom Hearts games. We've had them throughout the entirety of the series, and some of them are pretty interesting and fun, but you never really had to play them to perfection in order to kind of see everything that the game had to offer. The biggest problem with them is not doing the mini-games themselves, it's the mechanics and some of the physics with them that are just so annoying on top of the strict criteria that you need in order to get the near perfect score. It'd be one thing if I just had to play through them once and be able to collect all the different fruits I get from the Fantastic 7, but just for the fact that I have to get high scores or near perfect scores for every single one of them is absolutely insane to me. It's just not fun to play. They're super frustrating. They sometimes are just working against you, it feels like, and it's just so annoying. I know people have done this and I know they are doable, but this is just probably one of the most least fun aspects of Kingdom Hearts 3 to me. So now we come to the end. More specifically, we're going to talk about the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3. So I'm going to put a spoiler alert here once again because I don't want to hear it from you guys. As someone that has stuck with this series since the very beginning, I do have opinions about the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, which I feel like need to be addressed.
Now let's talk about the game's ending. How did I feel about the end of Kingdom Hearts 3? Did it live up to the hype or my expectations? Unfortunately, I wasn't really a fan of how this game ended. I felt like things were very rushed towards the climax and the final battle didn't really have a great conclusion. The fights leading up to the end with the Organization 13 members and Xehanort are pretty nuts at first glance, but they're broken up with terrible pacing and mediocre dialogue. Most of all, this probably won't make any sense to anybody that missed out on the majority of the story from previous games. Many of the callbacks and the references are pretty specific or obscure and might weird everybody out. But I also need to mention how many of the plot points and the overall logic of the series gets stretched out very thin here, almost comedically so. Nomura is definitely reaching very far in order to get certain characters to appear or wrap up certain story arcs, including some random moments that make a big splash, yet make no sense whatsoever. We can't discuss the ending without mentioning all of the crazy what the heck moments that happened. They were pretty cool and really surprised me, but they also felt like they were so out of left field and Deus Ex Machina in some places. Afterwards, I was expecting something huge to go down for the final battle, but I never really got that by the time everything was over. The battle was definitely big and epic in some ways, but nowhere near where I thought it was going. The so-called Xehanort saga eventually comes to a bittersweet and shallow end, one where I really don't think Nomura gave us anything that was the ultimate conclusion for what was built up over so many years. Am I happy that I finally got to see the ending to this saga? Yeah, but there are so many spots where I feel like things could have been handled so much better and ended on a much bigger and louder note.
As someone that has stuck with this series for so long, that has played just about every game that's come out and has covered it in great detail over the years, I feel like we don't get in Kingdom Hearts 3 what I like to call a Metal Gear Solid 4 moment. What that means necessarily is that everything that's been leading up to this entry of the series gets wrapped up or brought to some sort of conclusion that makes it satisfying for everybody that puts so much time and effort and years of their life into this series. What we get in Kingdom Hearts 3 instead is that everything feels a little bit rushed towards its conclusion and are wrapped up in ways that don't feel always too satisfying, a little bit more bittersweet than anything else, but also I feel like we get strung along for whatever the next project is going to be, rather than a definitive, like really solid, rock-hard conclusion to the Xehanort saga of Kingdom Hearts. That was something I felt like the game was really building up to in certain points of the actual story, but it never really fully follows through with it. It does have its shocking moments, it has some really what the hell just happened type of moments here and there, but it never really brings everything to a nice satisfying conclusion. Don't get me wrong, however, I understand that not everything has to be a happy ending. There are going to be those bittersweet endings here and there, but what I didn't get from Kingdom Hearts 3 was a sense of finality. I didn't really kind of feel that everything came to an awesome conclusion like what I did with Kingdom Hearts 2. Even though we were going to get another game after that and it was already teased in the secret movie, I still felt like you could have ended Kingdom Hearts 2 right then and there for the series and it would have been awesome. It was a satisfying conclusion. Kingdom Hearts 3, on the other hand, just doesn't do that. It kind of just strings you along, it kind of teases you for whatever is going to be the next project, rather than really satisfyingly finishing everything that has been building up to this point over the last 13 years for some people. Now, of course, we do have to talk about the epilogue and the secret movie, and I've already put enough spoiler alerts at this point, so let's just dive right into this. There's a lot of big twists in here that I feel like are pretty crazy that I did not see coming, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys did not see coming. I was completely floored with shock and amazement of why Nomura did some stuff like this. It started to really kind of connect everything, but I was still feeling like I was missing something by the time I actually saw the epilogue. The stuff with the foretellers and a lot of the other stuff dealing with Organization 13 and Xehanort, I feel like if you missed out on a lot of stuff involving Kingdom Hearts Union Cross or any of the other spin-off games are going to be completely foreign to you and you're definitely going to be lost. But even as someone that has put so much time and effort reading about Kingdom Hearts and playing all these games, I still felt a little bit lost, like I was missing something, like I was back at the same spot that when I actually started Kingdom Hearts 3, where I was now by the end of it. And finally, by the time I actually saw the secret movie that you get from finding all the lucky emblems in Kingdom Hearts 3 when it came out with the day one patch, I still didn't feel like it was all that satisfying. It did look very cool, and it's a huge tease for whatever the next project is going to be. I don't think that's going to be Kingdom Hearts 4, I think it's going to be another spin-off game, but still, as cool as it was to see something like that, I still didn't get any sort of sense of like finality or conclusion or satisfaction from the ending that I got with Kingdom Hearts 3. All this was supposedly building up after all these years and after all these spin-off games, but it kind of flopped there as an ending rather than being something truly epic and just awesome and just kind of put the final nail in the coffin for this saga. I think that's what a lot of people besides myself were really expecting, and I think a lot of people that are very similar to me, or even people that haven't played all the Kingdom Hearts games, are going to be disappointed by the time they finish this. But with all that being said, does that make Kingdom Hearts 3 a bad game because of that? Absolutely not. It still is awesome to play through. There's still a lot of great stuff in here that I feel like a lot of people should experience, especially if you've been playing all the Kingdom Hearts games. However, the ending is still pretty bittersweet and a little bit unsatisfying for someone like me, and even though there's still a lot of stuff to do by the time you finish that story, it still feels like there's still something missing there, and I feel like Nomura and the team kind of did a big misstep here. Maybe there's some things that are going to change up if we get a final mixed version of Kingdom Hearts 3, which I really believe we're actually going to get. But with that being said though, as it is right now on release, or at least around release time, this is the kind of product that we got, and I still feel like it could have been much better overall. And there we have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, it's absolutely insane and surreal that we finally get to talk about this game after waiting for it for so long. Despite my gripes that I've said about this game and all the stuff that I've had issues with, that I've criticized Kingdom Hearts 3 for, I still feel like it's still a great game that most people should check out and really experience whenever they can. And even personally for me, it's just awesome to really finally play a game like this and talk about it after waiting for it for so long. I mean, looking back at my copies of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 from back in the day and just remembering what it was like back then, I never once thought, and many of us out there never once thought, we'd be getting to this point after just playing these types of games back on PlayStation 2. It's crazy because this is such an impactful series for many of us in the games industry. We grew up with this type of stuff. There's been a significant portion of our lives playing this series. But those are just my thoughts on Kingdom Hearts 3. Let me know what you guys think about KH3 in the comment section down below. Do you guys enjoy the game? Are you playing it right now? Are you curious about diving into the Kingdom Hearts series now that everybody's really talking about it? Put it in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos just like this one and all my other content that I have here on the YouTube channel. Show some love if you can. And don't forget, I am also on Patreon. There's a link in the description box below that goes directly to my Patreon page. There's a lot of exclusive content that I know you guys will love that you should definitely check out. Even at the dollar level, there is a ton of exclusives you're going to get, including early access to videos just like this one and some of my other content that I post up on here. Check it out if you guys can. There's a lot of stuff I know you're going to love. That's all I got for you guys. I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody. Oh man, this is surreal being able to do this. And who would have thought that I'd be able to give the final snap for Kingdom Hearts 3 at this point? I know I keep saying that, but for many of us that have been waiting for so long to play this game and actually talk about it and review it, it's very emotional and very impactful. So I can't see any other fitting way to do so than to end this series off with this final snap. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Here's to the next one.
Thanks for checking out this video review, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Make sure you check out some of my other videos that are here on the side, and don't forget to visit my Patreon page for even more exclusive content and early access to some of my videos that I post up on the channel. There's a lot of exclusive stuff I know you're gonna love. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.